I mean, that's a good question. That's a good question.
But I want to say before I start my first question, I saw you at Ozfest in 2005. I will never forget it because I remember Will was on the side of the stage rocking out. It was in Bristow, Virginia. I'm a big metalhead. And
Right.
you went out there and you rocked the hell out of that show. It was so awesome. And then you signed my CD afterwards. I'll never forget it. So thank you.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
It's awesome to talk to you. Congratulations. The way you write is so descriptive. I love the way you use italics as well when you're trying to change the tone almost in the wording. I can hear your voice almost shifting while I'm reading it. It's really cool to do that. And the way it's just the detail, like about the embers on the cigarette and Pac's mom. And like it was just really kind of cool how you did that. The cover of the book is one of the most incredible covers I've seen in a long time. All the different images that come together to make that picture of you. When you see that image, what do you think about that person on that cover? What is that person? Obviously it's you, but emotionally, when you see that, what journey has that person been on?
Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who's one of my favorite authors, says it best. That's a well written upon woman. That's how I see her. Woman who's lived many lifetimes in one.
The section in the book about Tupac, I mean, there's a lot of that in the book, and I think it's incredible the way you write him. I have to tell you, it was the first time I ever really viewed him as a human being. And I say that because there's a legendary, iconic status around him as an artist, and I've always just viewed him as one of the greatest artists of all time. And I never really stopped to think about the person, the human, the person that you met in Baltimore. And I think about that journey and kind of what he went on. You gave me a really interesting insight into him. I was just curious, is there a song of his that means more to you now than it did when it came out? Because songs stay the same, but we change as people and the journeys that we go on. You're laughing, but is there one that...
I mean, that's a good question. That's a good question. Okay, so do you know his album Tupacalypse Now?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. So there's a song on there that I love called The Soldier Story. That's one of them. The second one would be Shed So Many Tears.
Why are those different to you now than they were when you first heard them?
Right, because when Tupacalypse Now first came out, it was like, I mean, of course, I was like, it was just, to this day, Tupacalypse Now is one of my favorite albums of his, right? But I was just such a rebel, we were just loud, young, and boisterous, you know what I'm saying? So listen to A Soldier Story now, I'm like, yo, I wonder if this particular song was based on, the Soledad brother, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh man, so I'm just listening to it differently, right? And then Shed So Many Tears, that's always been one of my favorite songs of Pac, but when I listen to it now, I can just feel into certain places that he would talk about with me when we were younger, that now being a mature woman and now having a son his age. You know what I'm saying? And just like the amount of pressure, just everything that he was dealing with emotionally at that time. And just being like, wow, even young then, not really getting the all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I think about it now, I'm just like, whoa, it's a heavy song.
You describe it in the book perfectly about the way his voice, the molecules in the air, about how that's good. I thought that was one of the coolest ways to describe what he means to people. And like you saw that early on. Obviously, talking to you today is interesting considering all the news that came out this morning, and it's all over social media about the separation and elements like that and being separated for 7 years. But what's fascinating to me is to talk to you on this day that came out. Now that the world is learning that information and talking about it, emotionally, is there a catharsis that you feel about that, a certain healing that you feel that it's kind of out there now? Because you talk about appearance versus reality a bit, obviously, in the book, and this concept of like what we see and what's really going on. I'm just curious, is there a weight lifted off of you to get that out there?
It's coming, it's slowly coming. I feel like it's still just part of the story, and, just this new journey that Will and I are on together. you know, in this transformation. And I think people, once the interview comes out with Hoda, I think people will have a better idea of, you know, what the journey has been and what it is now. And so I think right now it's just a lot of shock of like, what the hell? Yeah.
That was literally a reaction I got from someone in the newsroom. They're like, wait, is that real? How is that possible? It's been 7 years. How do people not know that? There's a quote that I wanted to bring up. I think it's one of the more powerful quotes in the book where you say, how is it that a woman can be irrelevant and culpable at the same time? And that's obvious. I think it's in the chapter about the Oscars and the slap and everything. And that line in particular, you say it's a riddle. Can you expand a little bit on that line in particular, and maybe the context of that?
Right. You know, I was speaking about, you know, the moment where you know, okay, well, let me talk about it in general terms, that, you know, women are considered to be, you know, the not as important, right? And but yet when a man does something unsavory, all of the sudden she has all the power in the world to make this happen. And I'm just like, that's a riddle. I'm trying to figure out how that can even be.
There's something that I thought was so interesting about, like, when I was reading the book about depression, because I've dealt with it all my life, been on different medications all my life, and had depression, anxiety. I've been on every SSRI you could imagine. When I hear you talk about it, and in the book, it goes into a lot greater detail. I won't spoil anything, but there's an element about a cliff that really, I remember reading about that. I was like, oh my gosh, just like the way when you were driving. And I wanted to talk to you about opening up about that, and kind of going back to my first question about the idea of putting things out there in the world and how they help heal you. Do you find therapy and catharsis in revealing that? Because it helps so many people when they see someone that does what you do for a living, that is as well known as you are, talk about that vulnerability. It's such an interesting thing. But what healing did you get from revealing that?
For me personally, I'm just hoping that it gives some oxygen to a person that's in a helpless place, like I had been at that time, right? If I had been able to hear a story like that, it might have, you know, it would have given me that air that I needed for a few more months, a few more weeks. It's probably something I would have read over and over again to give me hope that I would have a way out of this dark space. It would have continued to give me the willingness to keep trying and to not feel alone. And so what makes me feel good about it is that I know that there will be people out there who might be in this dark space that will feel like they're not alone. And I'm hoping, like, if it can just help one person that's in that space get out of that space, then that's everything. You know, it's such a lonely place to be. And a lot of times when we're there, we really feel like we're the only ones. I just wanted to make it known, you're not the only one. You know?
Yeah, I really appreciate you speaking on that. Last thing I'll ask you is this. I mentioned the idea of appearance versus reality. And we were talking about, obviously, with certain things, like you'll show up at an event, maybe with Will, and people just assume, oh, you guys are still, you know, together.
Right.
And the idea of giving information in interviews, in books, in talk shows, where is the line in terms of what you put out there and what you don't put out there? And obviously, with the appearance versus reality aspect of it, do you have a line in your mind that goes, all right, these things, because obviously with kids, it's hard when you talk about these things, they're going to read it and see the interviews as well. Is that a strange thing to think about when you put things out there? And how do you draw that line?
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote the book, I mean, it is scratching the surface of my journey. I know it seems like it's not, but it is, right? And so there's a lot of lines that I draw as far as what I'm willing to share. And a lot of people might think I'm sharing a whole lot. Well, from my point of view, it's not, because I know what a lot is. You know what I mean? It's like, I know what the lot is, which is why I'm not sharing that, right? But, you know, I feel like we have to have the courage to be honest about our journeys. You know, times are changing. Life is so different. And, you know, I can't really wait to talk about my journey with Will, because it's a really powerful one. And it's one of really deep healing and giving people an understanding of why we decided to remain married, why we decided to continue to be the family that we are. And the amount of healing we have done together has been so beyond. And I think that our journey, and I'm hoping one day we'll get to talk about our journey, but I think it would be so helpful for people who are couples today, trying to figure out how to find a happy place with one another, you know, happy place with yourself as well as a happy place with one another. And so I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be really helpful for people, because a lot of people don't want to talk about their relationships because people want to live up to the ideal.
Right.
And guess what? I don't know any relationships that are ideal. So I'll just leave that right there.
No, it's an honor to talk to you, and please do more Wicked Wisdom. And for people who are reading this book, wait till you read the chapter, the part about that in Ozfest and Sharon Osbourne. It's so cool that you did that. And Jada, you're awesome. And thank you for talking to me, and good luck with everything, and have the best time on your tour.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome talking to you.